Yeah, hello. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us on the Hearts We Trust channel. As always, we are very excited to come your way with the PHOBIA Tactical, where we talk about things that happened in the game involving Accra Hearts of Oak and try to do the analysis of where the team is. We saw another spectacle today. But before I do anything, remember to subscribe to the channel. Lots of updates. If you didn't see the goals that were scored today, they are on the channel, plus a lot more to come. I know some of you missed the PHOBIA match back. I saw a few messages on that. Where's the PHOBIA match back? We try and bring the PHOBIA match back, which is normally supposed to be a preview to the games before they're played. Today, I'm joined by my friend Kofi Bolassie, as always, as we get on the tactical bit to just check out it. Accra Hearts lost to Js Sauora by 4-0, and that was 4-2 in aggregate, and have been knocked out of the Confederations Cup and indeed knocked out of the African continent. That's no competition in Africa for Hearts of Oak is back to the Ghana Premier League, and that is where we are. So we'll go through the analysis. Kofi, thank you very much. I mean, how difficult was it watching the game?
Well, a very difficult one. I mean, mixed feelings, because we expected a game of that sort, a game where the opponent will come at us, but at the same time, we didn't expect the team to capitulate in a manner that it did. So it was mixed feelings. Very, even though it's mixed feelings, very difficult to watch. I mean, in all honesty and in all sincerity, very difficult game to watch. From a neutral point of view, as a Ghanaian or as a Hearts of Oak fan, or even I'm sure Kotoko fans who wish that Hearts of Oak would lose would have found it very difficult watching the game.
Yeah, that's right. So we are left with what we have to do in terms of the analysis, and it will be important to start from this point. Then we have to start with what we had talked about going into the game. The Algerians would have watched the Morocco debacle. They would have watched and realized that you have to be faster than them. You have to get to the balls first time. You have to give them less time to play. You have to pressure them. They'll be harried like they did against Morocco. And very much, take advantage of the area balls, get to the area balls first, and you are in there. Did the technical team have it wrong in the way they approached the game once more?
Well, I mean, from a tactical point of view, I think that if you remember in the last episode, I mentioned that they were overloading the side of Fatah Mohammed because they score a lot from set pieces and from crossing. Now, if you guys in today's game, the right winger who was stationed on the side of Radvoka and Dinchi, he caused that major havoc for the team, and I was hitting my head. I mean, it was constant. The pattern of play that leads to him having a 1v1 versus Dinchi was constant, and so I was wondering why that was not stopped, because I'm pretty sure that winger was stopped in that game, especially in the first 30 minutes. I think that Hearts of Oak would have stayed in the game. So tactically, most spoke about on this platform already, and some of them came to play. Some of them tried to change some of the things. For example, the team wasn't high, it wasn't too high, except after we conceded by 3 goals when he pushed up the team, and that created a lot of chances for the Algerians. But overall, it was more of like a template game from what we saw at work, except for the fact that the Algerians were not too clinical in terms of their chances that they had in front of goal. But in terms of how the guys lost concentration, how the guys were losing possession, how they were not marking their players, they were caught ball watching and all that, it was a very similar template. And this time, save the defensive line, which was a plus to someone with the right side of the attack was the right winger was stationed there, and he was causing constant havoc. So I was a bit disappointed with the output in terms of the tactics, because this is a game where you earn your money you map out a strategy to either lose and qualify or even draw the game. I'm not sure Hasselhoff can win away in Africa, especially in North Africa. So after that one, that would be too much to be asking of the team. But I thought that the coach with the plan, some of which I discussed. We are not technical men, so we will leave that to the coach and his team. I thought they would have come up with a plan. I mean, you know, a proper plan, well thought out, well drilled into the guys. That can get you a result. I mean, that's what is done everywhere. I mean, but if you capitulate in this manner, I don't think you know, you've done yourself such a great deal as a technical team and then as a team as well. For me, I have points in how some people decided and how they implemented the. I'm sure we'll get into it, but overall, practically more like a template, see the highlight and the execution of the plan. The plan itself, for me, intrinsically was a problem, and the execution of it also was a problem. So that would be my general comments on the tactical of the team.
Yes. So, Kofi, important points that you make there about the overall stuff that you saw and why you think the team didn't really come to up. Now, I am just trying to get you answer this question before we even go into the lineups and everything here. You know, again, I mean, once again, do you have a feeling that it's a case of you have the material but you don't quite put them to use well?
I want, I want to believe so strongly, because in the WAC game, most of us convinced ourselves that WAC were a very high level team, good salary, good players, good history and experience, of course, good record in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years in the competition. But this is Js Sauora. This is not a top team in Africa. They are a good side, but this is not the top team in Africa. I mean, if you want evidence, you look at the game in Accra and you realize that Hasselhoff should have beaten them even by more goals than they did in that game. So that shows you that there was a drop in levels in terms of from WAC to Js Sauora, and the levels dropped drastically. So I wasn't expecting Hasselhoff to play out a game where you think that, well, these guys would have given us another 6-0. Because to be fair, if Js Sauora took their chances, they could have beaten us another
6 or 5 or 7
or even 7.
Yes.
So I wasn't expecting a game where these comments would have been valid. I was expecting a game where even if Hasselhoff don't qualify, they put up a fight, maybe 3-0, maybe 3-1, even 3-0. The manner of the 3-0 is important. But if you capitulate in this manner where there was no effort, there was no fight, there was no desire from the players, there was no plan. Even if there was, the plan was faulty. The plan wasn't properly, set out. The execution was also very poor. So I believe that it is a case of the manager not knowing how to put a side together, the manager not knowing how to grind out results in this competition. And I would not accept, or I would not make an excuse that I made for the WAC game, because the levels are different. Everything is different. In terms of even traveling, WAC came here with a chartered flight, but this team came here through several routes. I mean, Hasselhoff also went there to the same route, which is a very, very long route. So in terms of pedigree, in terms of infrastructure, the difference is clear. And so I did not expect such, display from the team. What they've shown in Algeria, I didn't expect it at all. I expected something better, and I mean, I still continue to express my disappointment whilst we get into the details.
I'm just saying this because we'll get into the details, and again, I'm just saying this because whilst running commentary, I did say that they needed to control the ball, they needed to take it easy, and then all of a sudden, the second half, when a few changes were made, we'll go into the details of those changes. You could realize that the team now started playing, and then it gave me that conviction that certainly it's about the technical team getting up to speed with what they're doing than what the boys are told to do.
I think we have to get into it right away. The point that you just made, a valid point, because the team set out to defend. Was a very low block in the game. Now, what was the plan if we had the ball? What was the plan getting out from defense? What was the plan? It appeared as if they just set a block for the attack and half of them win the ball. There was no attempt to keep the ball. There was no attempt to recycle the ball. There was no attempt to keep possession of the ball. And so that was the problem. We were just allowing them to come at us. And it was as if we wanted them to come at us when, the deficit is cancelled, maybe 2-0 or 3-0, then Hasselhoff decide to play. And I thought that's a very erroneous tactic that someone will deploy, because I thought that if they try to dominate, not necessarily on the front, but when you get the ball, you try to work around it, to try to frustrate them a bit, because we know some way to like possession, and Hasselhoff display some sort of high-level possession, tendencies in the league last season. And I thought that this was where it had to come to bear. The players had to be convicted in their mind that we were going to keep the ball, we are going to be, and in a certain manner. Because even if you want to play on the counter attack, there's a plan to do that. Because there are coaches who earn their money on counter attacking football, and there's a plan. If you want to play on the front foot, there's a plan. So everything has to be planned. The tactic has to be right. The players know what they have to do when they get the ball. But if you watch the game up to the point where they scored 3 goals, it appears as if Hasselhoff did not want the ball. They did not know what to do with the ball when they got it. And it was after they scored 3 that he made some changes where the players attempted to play. They created quite a few half chances where they could have, it was enough. And it was too late. At that point, the Algerians started, delaying. And once I've mentioned delay, let me also comment on this, that you see, a lot of Ghanaians complain that North Africans like the delay tactic. But I have to say, we have to put it on record that it's a tactic that is part of football. You have to learn. One.
It's branded game management. It's called game management.
Yes, it's part of the game management. You have a 2-goal lead. Imagine, let's reverse it. Imagine, they beat us by 2 goals nothing. Imagine a sort of tactics that they would have deployed here in Accra. The game would not have flown beyond a minute. We would have had stoppage every 2 minutes. So it's a tactic that Ghanaian teams, Ghanaian players, Ghanaian coaches, Ghanaian fans will have to embrace. That is part of the game. Game management is part of it. The delay tactic is part of the game. And the biggest benefit for me in this delay tactic is that it disrupts the flow of the opponent. It disrupts the rhythm of the opponent. And it was clear when Hasselhoff were trying to get back into the antics and totally destroy what they had. So I believe that is something that the clubs have to learn a lot. Because if you go into a game with a 2-0 advantage, you have all these tactics at your hands. In the first 30 minutes, I didn't see anything that suggested that Hasselhoff, had a 2-goal lead and wanted to do something to frustrate them, including the delay tactic. But immediately they scored 3, they started. So it shows that instead of some Ghanaians having some resentment towards that tactic, they have to embrace it and deploy it, because it's part of football. And we see it at the top level football, at the World Cup, Champions League, Premier League, at the point where the team has to, grind results, especially when you are not on the front foot, when you are not playing too well, tactic that you can deploy. So generally, I agree with your point that it appears that there was a mistake in the plan. Or non-existence of the plan also will count as a mistake, because they didn't know what to do with the ball and all that. So that was a problem with the tactic. And if you invite pressure like that, the tendency to concede is
to pay for it. They're going to pay dearly for it, and that's what they did.
You pay for it. You pay for it. Against these not appearance, you pay for it.
Good.
You pay for it. Good. And one other thing that I have to also touch: you have 2 left backs on the pitch. There was Voka, and then there was Denchi on the pitch, and I could not understand. In any way, how the right winger was always free and causing damage. Because I thought that if you come into the game and you see that, okay, this is how they want to play, and they were played to a certain pattern where they created 1v1s, against Denchi with that right winger. And so it was very easy to mark him because you had two left backs on the pitch. Because other than that, I don't know what the essence of that.
I'm struggling. I'm actually struggling, and as we go through that starting lineup, I'm struggling to understand why Denchi and Radio Vuka were needed.
Yes. That was why I was saying that I don't know what the plan was. If indeed he wanted to stop that right winger, if he had heard about him before the game, then the planning, of course, was wrong. If he did not, in-game management was also wrong because he never reacted to that until Hatufok went down by 3-0 when he changed Radio Vuka and all that. And I thought that if Radio Vuka is fit, he's supposed to play as left back because he's the best left back at the club. So if anybody is going to improvise, it has to be Denchi rather in front of him and not Radio Vuka as left back because Radio Vuka defends better 1v1 and he can attack better. So I do not understand the essence of the two left backs, and where was actually used was where the two left backs were. And so it's very disappointing again. I mean, if you are going to justify the selection, it has to be on the field. And if an area where you were very much exploited is where you packed two lateral defenders, then again, there's a problem with the team. So I believe that the setup, again, was wrong. The idea behind the setup, again, they didn't get it right as well. So that's about that. In midfield, we had Salim, you have Ansabotri, and then Ajeni Boateng. I didn't know the idea about Ajeni Boateng also starting because clearly he's also a forward. I don't know. I thought he would have packed the midfield with Emmanuel Neti, Salim, Ansah, and then maybe Salif Ibrahim. But of course, we know Salif Ibrahim was not really fit like that. And so if he won't play, then you keep the shape with the three midfielders. And he wanted to improvise with Radio Vuka. Clearly didn't work. Because of course, Radio Vuka, when was the last time he played? Nobody knows. I think the last time he played was against Legon Cities also. Very long ago. Match fitness, and he has to sit in the car. He has to sit in several planes to travel. That also gets to him because he's not been playing. Also comes back to the point that the coach has not been freshening up the team, and so in cases where you want to give somebody a chance, it's probably his first time playing, or he doesn't know what to do when he comes on the pitch. So I mean, the problems were compounded, but ultimately, the disappointment is in the strategy, the plan that the coach has to set out. Because, I mean, come on. These are one-off games where you need to earn your money. And it has to come up with a plan. Because, mind you, if you set up your team properly and you assert them, you can even lose by a 1-0 or even 3-1 or even a draw or a goalless or a scoring draw. All that you needed was to qualify. And the excuses, like I've mentioned earlier, the whack excuses are not, they don't, they are not appropriate in this game.
They don't wash again, especially when the technical team sit back and watch the team play in the second half after the third goal and watch the team play in those 25 minutes before they conceded fourth. You could see that you had a good team that could have started with a better strategy, and that was it. Ejim Boateng in the midfield, I'm not too sure how I wrap my head around that.
It was pathetic. I don't know if because he came on in the game against Sauora in Accra and scored, maybe that was the idea or that was the thinking behind it. But like you said, after the 3 goals, it was clear that this is a team that could have done better. And we don't know why Atta didn't start. Richard Boydu. I mean, the first 2 goals, for example, were so avoidable, goalkeeping errors. Yes, so that takes away or that takes off some of the pressure from the coach. But eventually, I mean, overall, it's a setup. It's a plan that didn't work out, and it's very, very disappointing to go into the fault of each of the players and all that. But that's why today I've limited myself to the system or the setup that someone really went with.
Because you're right.
At the point, before even coming at the point, he changed Caleb Amankwa. Yeah, I mean, he changed Fatah Dinchi out and brought Fatah Mohammed on the left-hand side, and then brought Caleb Amankwa on the right-hand side. That's at the back line. So you realize that he knows that Dinchi definitely has a problem defending, and it's been clear all season when Radio Voka has not been played. So I thought again that if Radio Voka is okay to play, if he can play, then he should be playing at the left back position. If not, then you don't start him at all for him to put up such a performance. So I mean, it's disappointing, and you can't really get into individual players like that, except to blame the system, because this is a game where it was not about individual performance, but what the team could do together. And I didn't get that. I didn't get the feeling that we've come with a plan. We've come to cause an upset. We are playing for a certain result. We are doing it this way. And if we get the ball, we are going to do it this way. If we lose the ball, we are going to do it this way. Because, I thought that aside that right winger who was destroying the team in the first half, which could have been cured, that mischief could have been cured easily if the coach was properly reading the game. But he didn't react until he considered 3 goals. So very disappointing. I have to be repetitive on that. And going for it, the management of the team, the owners of the team have a big call to make, whether to go on with the coach or to stay on. I don't know. I'm sure we'll discuss that. But overall, that's the disappointment that I had with Samuel Buidu, with the setup. But I have to give him kudos that in fact, the high line, he didn't start with that, because if he did, someone will say, well, he's lost 4 when I'm bigging him up. But I'm bigging him up because if he had gone the old ways, like against WAC, when he pushed up his line, we would have been talking about 6-7. And that would have been very, very disgraceful. So I have to commend him for not allowing himself to be disgraced in that manner again by keeping a low block. After the 3-0, you realize that he pushed his team up again. And that led to a lot of chances for Sauora. But fortunately, they couldn't finish and kept the scoreline at least better than what happened in WAC. So it's better than WAC, but it's just a goal difference. So it tells you that the team could not do anything about the drop in terms of quality between WAC and Sauora. It appears that from this, then any team at all can beat Hearts of Ogawi. And they cannot just beat Hearts of Ogawi just like that, but by a very huge margin. Because if you play WAC and lose 6-1 and you lose 4-0 against Sauora, I believe that you've not learned anything, because the quality difference is a bit high. But it didn't count at all. And like I've said, and I keep on repeating, that this was a game where the scoreline could have been very, very disgraceful, except or see the fact that these people were not clinical in front of goal. So, like I said,
it's just what we put it. You know what? Yeah. I mean, even before we continue with that, so but again, the team plays in a game where they cannot quite simply even catch 15 minutes or 5 seconds or 10 seconds with the ball and pass. And it's clear that you need somebody to hold the ball, pass the ball, keep the ball, pass the ball, send the ball, and everybody's rushing. And this happens the whole of the first half, and there's no reaction to that. You make the point about, and that's the disappointment. There's no reaction to that. There's no reaction to somebody having the ball. It's later on that you bring the Subontin, and then Salifu comes, and you realize that when Accra Hearts will begin to hold the ball and begin to pass the ball, they are better than Js Sauora.
Yeah, that's true. And if you realize they dropped off a bit, and then allowed Hasselhoff to get into the game when some of these players came. But the point also, even though the game improved, was that they had their 3 goals already, and so they dropped up a bit for the team, for Hasbro to come at them and see what they've got. We wanted to protect that goal, that 3-0 lead that they've had, because they had a goal advantage and all that. So yes, those changes could have helped, but I mean, the whole feeling of the game in the first half, the fact that, as you've mentioned, that they could not pass the ball for even 3 seconds, they were shaky, they didn't know what to do, they were not confident enough. These are things that the coach has to instill into the players. I don't want to blame the players that much, but they had to show something. They had to show effort. You see, a lot of people will not be angry if there was some reasonable effort from the team that showed that they wanted a result. They wanted to achieve something. But from the way they were playing, it was very, very terrible. They seemed afraid. I don't know. I don't want to say the stage was bigger, but they had to be prepared better than they were. And very, very disappointing that they have to go out this way from the fantastic season that they've had. But then again, Ghanaian players, Ghanaian coaches have to know that if you achieve success, you have to, or you ought to build on it. You don't say that you've achieved a certain feat and that's all. You then want to calm down. No, you have to stay there and go higher and go higher. But from the way Hasbro are playing in the league and in the Confederations Cup, of course, when they play home, there's a lot of confidence. They one because they're not Africans. When they come here, they set up differently. They are not really interested in playing football. They just keep the scoreline respectable. So why can't Hasbro also go there and try and keep the scoreline respectable and qualify? How are they able to, transit between a very attacking-minded game like they did today, and then where they were very conservative and all that? So that's the problem with the Ghanaian team or Ghanaian coaches. They are not able to set their team for a certain result or for a certain, pattern. They just set the team up and play how they want to. But if you watch WAC and if you watch Sauora, you realize that they played very differently when they came in Accra. Very different from how they played at their home games. And that's what was lacking for Accra. They should have also played very differently from how they played in Accra, in Algeria, and then in Morocco. But like I said, it appears the plan was missing. And they had to, learn lessons like this. But you see, it's not too, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. People have to try to encourage themselves. It's not too bad. It's the first time that they are competing in a competition for a long time. They would have to try again. What they have to do is that they have to win the league again and come and play in the CAF Champions League or CAF Confederations Cup again next year. With how they've started like I've said, a change must happen, because you cannot play the CAF competition for one season and then just go off. If you come back, you come and meet such obstacles again. So Hasbro will have to ensure that they take a decision very soon. That will mean that they are back on track in the local league and then get something ongoing, because they have to come back in the competition. I'm sure they'll come back maybe with a better coach, with better players, because they've had the experience and all that. If that should happen, then they might be seeing themselves in the group stages of the CAF Champions League or the Confederations Cup. So all I'm trying to say is just trying to sound like a motivational speaker. All is not lost. Something can be done.
Something can be done again. Yeah. But it must be quick. And can I just kind of put this question? I don't like to compare and I don't want to contrast. I don't want to, but I'm just saying, do you see any Ghanaian club surviving the WAC tests or surviving the Sauora test?
I don't see a Ghanaian club surviving the WAC test. However, I don't think that other Ghanaian clubs would have, or coaches would have capitulated in a manner that Hasbro did in Algeria and in Morocco. I see another Ghanaian club could have beaten Sauora. I see that. I see that. I've seen Chelsea, I've seen Mediama in the CAF competitions. I've seen Kotoko as well. I think that others could have done that. Others could have beaten Sauora or qualified ahead of Sauora. Yes, they've had some other clubs have had even way lower teams knocking them out, but it doesn't mean that the Ghanaian club cannot do that. But as for WAC, I don't see any Ghanaian club eliminating them. But I also think that other clubs could have had better results against WAC, and better doesn't mean they would have eliminated them. Of course, that's beyond Ghanaian clubs. But as for Sauora, I think that a Ghanaian club could have done that. Even Hasselhoff could have done that if they were a bit proactive in terms of how they prepared and how they set up.
I'm just saying that it appears that our top clubs may have to start thinking about Africa and not just think about Ghana. Because the last time we saw, was it Intensity come here, draw 2-2, go there, find a way around Kumasi Asante to make it difficult for them. It's about time our clubs begin to think Africa, and you need to build a team that is good for a team that is that good, and not a team that is just good for Ghana.
I mean, to get there, I think we've had this discussion before offline. It's all about money. It's kind of how I say. If the clubs invest, if their owners are willing to invest, they can get there. Because investment means you have better coaches, you have better players, you have better preparations towards the games and all that. And that's the only solution for me for our Ghanaian clubs to get there. If they don't want to invest, then they would have to take, a miracle. If not a miracle, has to take a plan. Like, for example, Samuel Boadu getting into the Confederations Cup, the group stages, or the CAF Champions League group stages would have been a miracle. I mean, in terms of Haas's experience in the last 10 years in the competition and all that, it would have been a miracle for him to get there. By saying it would have been a miracle, it does not mean that you cannot do it. Because some teams, for example, the team in Madrid's group in the Champions League, I think it's a Sheriff or something, where we have Edmond Addo playing. It's not a Champions League team, but
Sheriff Tiraspol.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's not a household Champions League team, but they are there doing wonders. So in that sense, you wouldn't want to excuse Samuel Boadu because, yes, you are not, in terms of investment, you are not a household name over the last 10 years or so, but it does not mean that you cannot do it. You can do it if you properly plan, if you properly coach the team, if you properly, set out to play this competition. You could have done it. In that sense. In another sense also, then there need to be investments. That's the only way where you can catch up, where you wouldn't need, a very, very strong performance out of the world to get there. No, your normal performance could should be able to get you into the group stages or of the CAF Champions League or the Confederations Cup. That's where you have to invest it. If you have a lot of good players, good managers, a normal performance in coach should be able to get there. But if you don't, like in our case at this moment, you need an extraordinary performance, and an extraordinary performance should come from the management, putting something very special together, the coach putting something very special together to get the results. That's the only way that you can make a meaningful impact. Of course, with money, it's easier. Without money, you need to work, and you need to work.
Well, I think we just made about it. It's just about it. Yeah, the result is what it is, and out of Africa, that's it. So it's just back to Ghana Premier League. But obviously, I hope that Coach Samuel Boadu has learned the lessons. It's what's important, especially about the squad and about when you have to decide what you want to do. The players are available. I think the players are available, and even using Caliban Mankwa as a right back today, gives you that. And I remember we said some time ago that is actually his place.
His best position, yeah.
That's his best position, So it's good to see that somehow he was able to come up with that. So he knows the boys after all.
And see, let me also add one last thing that again, one of the things that Samuel Boadu should have done is that you realize that after the WAC game, we played a couple of games. Okay. So I was thinking that within all these, games that we played in the Premier League, and even at home against Sauora. I mean, he should have known that he would go away in Algeria. And in Algeria, this is how the game will pan out. So he should have been planning and training with the boys on a particular plan to execute in Algeria, right from the WAC game. Because assuming you were so naive and you didn't know that this is how WAC plays, at home, you saw it firsthand, you had the experience, it was 6-1. So you should have come back home and sat down and, try to put out a plan and execute it. But with what we saw today, it appears there was no lesson learned from the WAC game. Even if it was learned, it wasn't put into use. The same mistakes, the same sort of performance was what we put out again. And mind you, if we play any away side next week or next 2 weeks with the same system, setup, coach, players, I think we'll record another, embarrassing result again. So comes back to the point about planning. Sometimes you don't have to wait. You need to plan, and that plan should have been done in training. And some way somehow even executed in some of the Premier League games, so that you test it with your friendlies and all that. But from what they put out today, it appears that there was nothing like that, or nothing was worked on for the away game. Because
just for the one, cross the ball into the hard to go area, and they won't get first. They won't be first in the ball. You'll be first in the ball, and that was a lesson that Js Sauora learned from the game against WAC, and just implemented that today and got goals.
Exactly. And you see, the set piece problem is also a Ghanaian problem. It's not only a Hasselhoff problem. Ghanaian players and Ghanaian coaches, they don't view set pieces as a tool to score, or they don't see it as something that they have to practice to defend. So it's a usual, let the top players come in and all that. Set piece is a whole mechanism where you can. Teams are built on set pieces. For example, Burnley. The Burnley coach has built a whole team on set pieces, and that is what they use throughout the season. So if you still view set pieces as, we're a corner, let the tallest person or the biggest person stand in front and attempt to clear it. If there are no plans towards your set pieces in terms of defending and even using it to score, that's what will happen to you at the high level, where some of these teams, have plans and they set out well to disturb you. In the last episode, you remember that we mentioned that in the last 10 minutes of the first half, they started overloading Fatah's side and started showing what they are made of. And in this game, maybe they watched some videos of us and saw that, okay, well, Fatah was a bit better, but then Chi's side defensively was very poor. So today, that was where they overloaded and caused all the damage from. And unfortunately, there was no reaction from that side. And so they had to beat them by 4 goals to nothing. And it could have been more.
Thank you very much, Kofi, for joining me on this one. As always, they say when you win titles, it buys you time, but sometimes it may not buy you all the time you need in the world. Yeah. There is still a lot. Yeah. Still a lot.
Yes, the title can buy you time, but for me, I can never be blackmailed by titles, because unless even if the title is the first of the club, I don't think that you have to be blackmailed. For me, my understanding of football, my philosophy of football is that at every point in time, if things are not going well, the coach is the first point of call before any other thing. Players cannot be sacked just like that. Owners cannot be sacked just like that. Usually, of course, and if coaches are refreshed by changing them, there's a reaction. So for me, yes, it might buy time with some supporters, but for me, titles don't really buy time for me. If you are not performing, and my standard is that if you win, you have to continue to win. You have to continue to win. You have to continue to keep the standard. You cannot fall and blackmail us with the fact that you won Hasselhoff's first trophy in about 10 years or so. That's not good enough to blackmail anybody. I remember Abramovich was searching for the Champions League trophy all this while, and he had to take Di Matteo to, come and win it. And in October, he was sacked. And by October, I mean that the season finished around July. The season started. The season finished around May. It starts in August, and October he was sacked for winning the trophy that the man was looking for all this while. That's Chelsea's first Champions League trophy. So for me, I don't think that if you win titles, it's good enough.
You should buy in time.
You have to work it. You have to work it.
You've got to earn your money, right? You've got to earn your money.
Yes, you have to earn your money. And he was supposed to earn his money today by qualifying into the group stage. Because if he did, it would have bought him the whole of the season in terms of time. He would have had the whole of the season in terms of time. Because any bad performance in the Premier League, you can somehow, even if it's false, you can falsely attribute it to the fact that you are participating in the group stages of the Confederations Cup. And that's a big excuse for you that, everybody would like to buy. You've lost that opportunity. And the league itself, the performance has not been good. So in terms of time, he doesn't have too much time.
Kofi, thank you very much for your time, as always. We look forward to the next Ghana Premier League game. That's where Accra Hearts are at the moment. It's been a very interesting gaming. It's been a revealing gaming as well. And so a lot of points have been noted there with the team performance and how things have gone. And once again, the mood has sunk. They'll have to try and get themselves up. It's obviously a difficult task, but they have no other option as professionals to get back up and get it done. So, Kofi, thank you. Sports law class.
So it's always a pleasure speaking on As We Trust on the Phobia Tactical.
Phobia Tactical.
It's a very big platform, and it's always good to share ideas here.
Yes, like you said, we're sharing ideas. The way we read the game, and I'm sure we almost always are on the same wavelength with how we saw it going. One of those nights. You know what? You can always remember to subscribe to the channel, and you turn on your notifications because there are a lot more videos coming up, and we're going to be doing just that all the time as we go through it. It's a long season, but the work must start going through, which is important. I'm George Addo Jnr. Kofi was here with me. Till we meet next week again on another wonderful edition of Phobia Tactical. And I promise we'll try as much as possible to get in the match packs for you so that you're fine. So Kofi, we have to make it a point to sit down and do the match pack and make it available for them as we go through. Hi, guys. Okay. Take care of yourselves, and we're definitely back soon.
يسترجعها فريق شبيبة الثورة. حميد يطلع من هناك يلعبها مع سعادي أو مع سعد في منطقة الجزاء. كرة دائما يسار شبيبة الثورة، صعبة خطيرة. الهدف الأول لشبيبة الثورة، 1-0 لشبيبة الثورة عن طريق سعد الذي يمنح الأسبقية والتقدم لفريق شبيبة الثورة. كرة بشارية جزائرية، فلهذه أن تهدر الضربة القاضية وفرصة إضافة الهدف الرابع تضيع على شبيبة الثورة. الحمري عمل كل شيء، أعطاه تمريرة في المستوى، تمريرة ممتازة. الحمري التسديدة، هدف رابع لشبيبة الثورة، هدف التأهل لشبيبة الثورة. الجياس يمشي في رحلة العبور، يسجل هدف المرور.